Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders. I'm your host, Meredith Rom, and I believe the time has come for women to share their gifts, their voice, and their stories. I love seeing women spiritually and financially empowered, thriving in their life's work, and doing what they love every day. I've gathered a community of women living their dreams to tell us their stories and inspire us to step into more courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. If you like this podcast, use the hashtag Rising Woman Leaders, follow me on Instagram at Meredith Rom, and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com to get all the new and inspiring content. Now get cozy with a journal and a cup of tea. I hope you enjoy today's show. Today I'll be sharing wisdom from the webinar I led last week called Unearth Your Unique Brilliance. It was so fun to connect with the women on that webinar that I decided to share it with you here. Enrollment is now closed for the one-on-one mentorship that I speak about in the webinar. However, we are preparing to open up the enrollment on April 2nd for a new round of the Sovereign Circle. This is a 9-month-long sisterhood program that includes monthly private healing coaching sessions with me, where I'll be sharing the modalities I speak about in the webinar, EFT and matrix re-imprinting. The program also has 2 monthly group sisterhood calls, guest mentor calls, and a few in-person day-long retreats. Again, enrollment opens up for the Sovereign Circle on April 2nd. The program begins on May 2nd and goes all the way till the end of the year to the first week of January of 2019. So to get on the list, to be the first to know about this program and when enrollment opens, visit risingwomanleaders.com. You'll see some more details about the Sovereign Circle. I look forward to sharing more with you soon. So wherever you are, let's just take a moment to close the eyes and feel your body. Feel this moment. Let's exhale out all the air in the body. Take in a full, deep inhale. And then let it out. Another deep breath in. Slowly let it out. And then we'll do one more of those deep breaths. And let it out. Take a moment to connect to your heart. To connect with your breath. To welcome yourself to this space. Okay. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Let's see, we have a chat box in the bottom. So anytime you have questions, things like that, questions I ask that you want to share, you can type something into the chat box. And I muted everyone to start. And I just want to get anyone that's on video, can you just give me, maybe Vicky, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, see me, everything looks good? Okay. Always like to check that too. Awesome. So the chat box is there if you guys want. I'm going to kind of go into my flow of sharing, but I will periodically take breaks and just check the chat box, see if anything's coming up over there. I just want to thank you all for being here, for taking this time, for choosing to be here with us live today. I think there's a lot of benefits you can get from that. And for all of you that are tuning into the recording, I also really welcome you, and I'm so grateful you're here. So this webinar is called Unearth Your Unique Brilliance. And why I created this, I put this webinar together because my work has really been evolving quite a lot in the last year. And I wanted to have the opportunity to share about some of the new techniques that I've been learning. And I also wanted to share a little bit because I've been seeing different ways in my own life that I've been expanding, and some of the things that I've been dreaming of for years are finally starting to come to fruition. And I really yearn and long to see women shining and living their dreams and coming more and more into their voice and their unique brilliance. So I wanted to share just some of the tools that have been really helpful. So what you'll learn today, I'm going to share 3 steps to uncover and heal whatever might be holding you back from shining in your unique brilliance. I'm going to share tools to feel difficult emotions as a pathway to freedom and unlimited potential, and with the guidance of Mary Magdalene in that. And I'm going to also share how to identify core beliefs that may have formed from memories in your past. I'll share about the foundations of EFT, tapping therapy, and also matrix re-imprinting. And at the end, we'll have some time for demos, so definitely stick around for that. And I'll also give you a little look inside the Diamond Mentorship program that I have been putting together and am sharing right now, and I'm really excited about it. So that's a little overview of what we'll have. So part of my intention is that you connect with some of your lifelong dreams today. You begin to see more and more how worthy you are of those dreams, and identify what may be in the way or holding you back from really living those. I also want to support you to uncover any memories or past trauma that you feel you're ready to heal, so that you can free yourself from old habitual patterns and fears, so that you can live with more ease and more grace. So first, I just want to dive into this metaphor of the diamond. So last year, I became really curious about the energetic qualities of this stone, the diamond. What is the medicine of a diamond? What can it help us with? And I started looking it up online. And some of the qualities I discovered were clarity, self-love, self-respect, contact with the divine, faith, love, purity, endurance, beauty, abundance, ability to reflect light. And I just thought of how beautiful that is, that metaphor of like the way that I wanted to be living in my life and the way that I wanted to help other women be shining. But I also started to have the insight that a diamond, when it comes out of the earth, it's not just this shiny, brilliant stone. It's actually, there are like all these layers to uncover before we see that essence. And I've been thinking about that with myself and my work with women, and how I needed to be willing to go deep into feeling my own areas where I was holding pain, the own places where I was feeling darkness. And that was a pathway to uncover more of that light. And I've been seeing the same happening with my clients. So when we have the opportunity to go into a place that's deeper, I'm seeing how layers of shame or guilt or fear or these limiting beliefs are starting to uncover more and more of their unique brilliance. So one of the tools that has been really powerful for me is EFT. Probably most of you are familiar with it. It stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And it's tapping. It's tapping on the meridian systems. So the first time that I learned about this technique was from my partner, Michael. He's actually been trained in this modality for a long time. And when we had our first date, he had just come back from this training in Italy. It was he might have been out there for a month. And I had just taught my very first yoga class the night before. And it was my first time teaching it in a studio. And I was terrified. Like, I came out of that experience just like, oh my God, I did it. But it was so, so scary. And I was holding a lot of physical discomfort in my body, and some old memories and trauma around what it was to really be seen and to share my voice. And he asked me, like, well, I just learned this modality. Do you want to try it out? And we were out at a park sitting at a picnic table. And I was like, okay, I'll be willing to try it. And over the course of an hour, we went through the whole tapping process, uncovered some memories. I went deep into my fears. I cried. It started to lift so much. In a way, it was the first time I really felt like, wow, maybe this could be fun. Maybe this, because it was something I felt so called to do. I really knew in my heart I wanted to be a teacher. But there was just some blocks in the way of that. And when I was able to do that technique, it was literally, I feel like, the beginning of everything I've been able to create up until then. And it was last year when I began working with a mentor, and she started bringing in EFT and this other modality matrix, re-imprinting, into our sessions. And I was just like, what is this? I need to learn this. I need to know more. And I ended up doing my own trainings to become a practitioner. And this, I've been bringing it into my work with women, and it's very, very powerful. I feel like it's like the missing piece that I had. Now, there was so much I could do with affirmations and really just believing myself and sisterhood and all these, but really looking at those dark places and my fears and using this modality of the tapping, and I'll explain a little more why it works in a moment, was really what helped me to come into that new level of shining. So what is tapping? What is EFT? It's a fast and gentle way to discharge emotional distress, also traumatic memories, and negative thoughts. And so EFT uses tapping on the meridian points while focusing on a specific problem. And the reason it works is because the tapping begins to work with the part of our brain that controls the stress response, the fight or flight. And this is the amygdala. Many of you have probably heard of it before. The amygdala was developed before spoken language actually existed. And so our words alone, they can work with the frontal cortex and the rational side of our brain. But the tapping actually begins to speak to the amygdala and help lower our stress response of what we feel might be a real or an imagined threat. So for humans, threats may be as simple as worries and fears. And in ancient times, it was really important that our amygdala would start going off whenever we felt like there might be a tiger and we needed to run away. And our body will fill with adrenaline and cortisol and all of that. But in present day, many of us are actually living that reality all the time. Many of us are in that fight or flight response just from our thoughts, just from a thought of fear, a thought of worry. And what would happen to me when I would think about getting in front of a group of people to speak, my whole body would start reacting that way. It would be like adrenaline running through, hard to breathe, chest constricting, like the total response of like, you need to get out of here because you're in danger. But the truth is, like, I really wanted to do those things. I really wanted to be able to take those steps forward. And so the tapping began to speak to the part of my brain that didn't understand the rational words. So the EFT helps turn off the amygdala's reaction to specific problems. And tapping communicates directly with this part of our brain. What else? So EFT also works with energy. And any disruptions in our energy system are often caused by unresolved emotional traumas and unexpressed emotions. So emotions, all of our emotions have an important function. It was no mistake that the universe was designed in this way that we would have all of these emotions. Emotion means energy in motion. Our emotions are meant to flow through us and be released. And emotions can really often get stuck when we don't let ourselves fully feel them. Emotions can get stuck when we don't feel like it's safe to express them. And so the tapping is one of those modalities that can help tell us, it's safe to feel this. It's safe to let this go. And in some of my work, I remember working with one woman who hadn't cried in years. And she really wanted to cry, but it was like so stuck. And she had never tried tapping before. And I was like, I just did this training. Can we try this out? Tapping, literally within 2 minutes, she's crying. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And so much started to move. And it was so beautiful to witness. So many of us are carrying stuck emotions. That may be anger, grief, shame, fear, confusion, shock, or horror. All of these emotions can live in our bodies and really cause distress and disease when they're not fully felt and released. So when we start tapping, what can happen is energy starts to move, and we might experience yawning, crying, laughing, burping. All of these are just ways that the energy starts to move and things start to be move a little more freely. So I'm going to run you through some of the tapping points, and I'm just going to go here into our group. So I'm going to show you all the tapping points to get started. So the first one is right here on the edge of the hand. And I invite you to do this with me. And I'm just going to walk you through to start. So usually we do talking and a repeat after me kind of process. But right now I'll just walk you through the points. This is our karate chop. We start here because this particular point begins to just soften any resistances we have to the technique. And then we go up to the top of the head. And so these points, they're actually, they're specific endpoints of these meridian systems that are really powerful. And then the next one's the eyebrow. And Gary Craig, the man who really brought EFT to the forefront, he really simplified the technique from other modalities of like, we're just going to tap on all the points, run through all of them and see. The next one is on the corner of the eye here. And really just cover all the bases of what could really be the one that starts to affect with the amygdala. The next one is underneath the cheekbone or on the cheekbone. So you can see that. And it goes on the top of the lip. And then underneath the lip. You can all take a deep breath. The next one is the center of the chest. Deep breath. And then the next one, I'm just going to tilt my screen here. It's at the bottom of the rib cage. So you'll have your rib cage here, and it's just at the bottom there. And it goes to underneath the armpit. So, and you can do either side. You can do one side at a time or both sides at the same time. Sometimes I do this. And then the next one is the top of the wrist, bottom of the wrist. And then we work our way back up to the top of the head, just like that. So feel free to do this throughout the webinar. It's a good kind of energetic wash of the body, even if you're not working on a specific issue. There are times I've been in a car driving and feeling car sick or nauseous, and just tapping on my body like this starts to move the energy. There's so many different things you can use this for. Does anyone have any questions just so far? So far, I've just explained a little bit about what EFT is, how it works, some of the background. Feel free to put any questions in the chat box. Okay. So I also want to cover what is matrix re-imprinting. So when we land on a memory in EFT, a challenging moment from our past, this is a modality where we can actually go back into the memory and begin doing the tapping on the younger version of ourselves. And the client actually becomes this younger version of ourselves. And my client who I'm speaking to, we are both on a team really to work with that younger version of yourself. And we can communicate with her. We can see what she learned about herself or life in this moment, what limiting beliefs she may have formed. We can help her reframe and even relive the situation in a new way. So there are a couple things I want to cover. When thinking about an issue, so think about an issue you might be having in your life. Let's say, for example, you really want to call in a love relationship, loving partnership. So this would be like the top of a table, the overlying issue that you're working on. And underneath the table, you have these legs. And those legs are all the supporting evidence for why you might have that particular issue. And these can be specific memories, like maybe you had a lot of heartbreak in your past, or maybe you had a lot of moments where you felt rejected, or maybe, and whatever that is, it's often these are reinforcements of this overlying issue. And when we start using the EFT and the matrix re-imprinting, we begin knocking down each of these table legs. And often you don't even need to address every single one of these memories for the whole table to fall down. Like if you start getting through enough of these memories, knocking down those table legs, the whole issue can eventually collapse. There's often different aspects to a particular issue. So someone might be come to a session and be feeling anger, and we're working on the anger. And then we check in again about how things are going, and suddenly there's all this sadness. And so the same issue can address many different aspects, and each of the aspects need to be addressed before we can really encompass that whole issue. So I want to speak a little bit about trauma. A trauma is what happens when our freeze response is triggered. So I talked a little bit about fight and flight, and there's also freeze. And a trauma often happens when we feel there is a threat and we feel some kind of helplessness. And in that helplessness, there's a sense of isolation, like being all alone, there isn't anyone there to help, and shock. So if any of you have been in a car accident, or had some kind of physical abuse or sexual abuse in your life, those are all happen to be those moments where we tend to feel threat and helpless and shock. And there are two different kinds of traumas. I'll just identify. There's like a little T trauma and there's a big T trauma. So the big T trauma may be more of, someone close to you dies, or you go through a big accident. Those could be more of a bigger trauma. And the little trauma could literally be as small as being a little child and reaching out for mom and wanting to be picked up. And then the phone rings and mom goes and picks up the phone and ignores you. Like that could be ingrained in your mind. That little child could actually make a belief like, wow, no one cares about me. Or like, if mom is everything to me and mom's not paying attention to me, then I just must not get what I want. There can be these over generalizing beliefs that are created in these moments of trauma. So many of you might know of this experiment. I think it was Peter Levine. He was researching animals in Africa. And he would watch the gazelles, I think, when they would run away from a cheetah chasing them. And he would watch as if the gazelle got away, it would go somewhere safe. And as soon as it felt safe, it would start shaking. And it would start to release that trauma. And it would just allow the body to discharge. And what happens for humans, we actually need to do something like that too. And after trauma, sometimes you actually do start to shake. But a lot of that has been suppressed in our culture, can make people feel uncomfortable. We don't know what to do about it. And so a lot of that's been suppressed in our subconscious. So tapping is another form of discharging and actually shaking off whatever that trauma was. So when we have a trauma, there is a very good case that you don't even remember it. You can't even associate with it. And this happens because our subconscious coats the trauma in somewhat of a capsule and wants to cover it with disassociation. And this is, something that happened, but we're going to cover this with this special coating so that we don't have to go back there. And it can cause us to not really remember it very well. But what the tapping can do is it starts to tell the body that it's safe. And this memory that was kind of stored in a different part of the brain becomes more to the forefront. And we might suddenly have a memory. Like when I was in my training, we were working with a woman about an allergy that she had. And out of nowhere, she had this memory of being in Thanksgiving dinner at 5 years old. And, it had something to do with the turkey not being cooked enough and being forced to eat it. And suddenly she couldn't eat anything that was raw in her life. Like this was just an example of something, this memory she had no idea was there. And then suddenly it was there once we started doing the tapping. So anytime we feel a trigger in our life, like, something happens, feel the intensity of emotions in your body, it's very often that trigger is because it's triggering a memory of a trauma from something in our past. And we tend to invite these same situations again and again. Some of you might be familiar of like, oh yeah, I keep having the same recurring issue, or I keep attracting the same type of love relationship. And the reason this happens is because our subconscious is actually reliving the trauma in present day time, like in a different part of it's not in our conscious experience, but our subconscious wants to heal this memory, and it really wants to heal this old trauma. And so we actually create situations that bring us exactly back to that moment of what the original trauma was, because we want to heal it. And unfortunately, what often happens, because we don't have the exact tools to work through it in a new way, we end up reinforcing the same beliefs or the same traumas. And then we start gathering all this evidence of like, this is why I can't call in that love relationship, or this is why I can't make more than this amount of money, because we keep calling upon those memories stored from the past and reinforcing them. So when we begin to free these past versions of ourselves, we use the tapping, we begin communicating with these inner child, the younger parts of ourselves, we no longer need to act in accordance with the belief structures that were created at that time. So I'll give a couple examples of how this has been helping me this year. So last year I published a book, and I went through a lot of intense emotions around that, being that seen, sharing my story in a bigger way, being visible, not to mention doing more interviews on top of all of that. So these tools were really helpful getting through some of those fears, being willing to be seen and share my voice. I've been using these techniques for healing my jaw clenching and tension from when I sleep, because it's a subconscious part of my mind that keeps reenacting the same original traumas from a long time ago. I've used these techniques around beliefs with scarcity and abundance, shifting my relationship to money, having greater trust in the universe, being able and willing to start claiming the things that I desire, taking bigger steps in my business, hiring support, moving to a new home, all the things that my heart was really longing and desiring to do. Suddenly, as I started working with these younger versions of myself that were really scared and holding back and holding these limiting beliefs, there was all this new space to start to move forward. So I want you to know that your desire, whatever it is you desire, is actually guiding you into your highest growth and your path of ascension. So no matter what the outcome is, just taking those steps forward towards those true heart desires is going to be healing for yourself. And it will, in turn, be healing for all the people around you. So I just want you to know that it's okay. It's okay for your heart to want what it wants. I'm going to give you another example. So for years, ever since I was a little girl, as many little girls, they longed to have a wedding. And that was a desire that I had. And I was with my partner for over 5 years before we started even having conversations about, whether or not this was the right next step for us. And there was a part of me that, so at first I was kind of feeling like, oh, why hasn't this happened yet? Blaming things on the outside of rather than really looking within myself. And I started to uncover that actually there was something inside of me that felt like maybe I shouldn't want this, or maybe I'm not worthy of this. And I really needed to look at those places in order for those new steps and opportunities to start to open up. But since I've been giving myself more and more of that permission to shine, it's also been scary because I've had this belief that this might trigger other people, because I've been triggered seeing other people shine. And I'm sure some of you are familiar to that. You see another woman shining in her brightness and it's like, oh, I want that. Or how come that's not happening for me yet? And I want you to know that that's okay. And it's really important to feel those feelings and to like really hold yourself and take care of yourself through that. And I've found that often that comes up for me when I realize I'm not giving myself permission to go for my dreams. And maybe it's similar to what that person's doing, or maybe it's totally different. But it's really about taking responsibility for that desire you have, seeing that as beautiful and that you're worthy of it, opening to the pain of not having that yet. It's totally okay to feel that pain, allowing that pain to guide you back to a sense of wholeness within yourself, and then realizing that, yes, you can have this. So now I try to see like shining in my brightness as an opportunity for other people. Like showing other people that, yes, they can have their desires too. Yes, they can come into their highest growth. They can shine bright. They can come into the things they really want. So last weekend, I called together a group of a few girlfriends, and they went on a trip with me to LA. And I got to try on a wedding dress that I've had my eyes on. And it was really vulnerable for me to ask for them to show up in support of me, to take a weekend out of their time, to even invest their resources towards Airbnb for the weekend. I had to ask some powerful requests to even be able to ask these women to show up in support. And this desire I had, this really beautiful, innocent desire to be with my girlfriends on this trip. What happened was so beautiful and so powerful. By following my heart desire, I brought these women together into such a deep healing place. Like every single one of us cried over the weekend. Each of us had our moment of like really letting go and being seen. And for several of the women, they started to see places in themselves where they were denying their own truth or their own desire. And through me really claiming the things that I wanted, I saw that I was able to lift them up and help them see that they could have what they really wanted to. And so the piece that really helps me with this is the archetype of the queen. So in those moments when I feel a fear of triggering others or feeling triggered myself, I call upon the queen, because the queen is someone who says yes to her power in order to be in devotion for her greater mission and her people. So she says yes, but she does it in a way of being of service. She allows herself to be big and bold and beautiful, and to be that inspiration for all the people around her. She does not make herself small just so that other people will feel comfortable. She chooses to live in abundance rather than scarcity. And she takes supreme care of herself to be a clear channel for her mission. Okay, so I'm just going to pause there. I'm about to dive in now to the 3 steps to uncover and heal. Any questions so far? Any shares that people have? Any thoughts? Feel free to share in the chat box over here. Otherwise, I'll keep going. So the first step is all about getting clear on what it is you want. And once you have that clarity, identifying reasons that you may not want it, and that reasons that you may be holding yourself back. So I'm going to give you an exercise, and this is called the big rocks. You may have heard of this. So I want you to imagine if I had 2 big glass jars, and if I had these big rocks, and let's imagine these big rocks stood for the big life dreams that I wanted to accomplish or live out in my life. And then I had this big pile of sand, and the sand represents the emails, the to-do list, the cleaning the house, the laundry, the cooking, all those little things that we do throughout our days. So if I take one jar and I fill it up with sand, and I try to fit my big rocks on top, there's not going to be a lot of room. However, if I take a jar and I put my big rocks in first, and then I pour in the sand is just going to fit in around all those little crevices and start to fill up the jar. And what this is really about is priorities. So when we focus on the big rocks and really gain the clarity on what it is we want, then all the little to-do lists and pieces and cleaning the house and all of those things will fit in around the edges. So I'm going to invite you to write your big rocks. And so if you have a pen and paper, I'd love for you to write down 5 big rocks. And this is the thing that you would love to see happen in your life. That you would love to know that the day you die, this is something you experienced, or this is something you let yourself have, or something you did, or it could even be a quality of being. What are those big rocks for you? So I'll give you an example of what mine were. And I wrote these about 5 years ago. So my first big rock was to lead an international retreat. It was this idea that felt like it was a gift from God of just, this is something you really long to do. My second big rock was to publish a book. My third was to be surrounded by everyone I love in a ceremony where my partner and I share our vows with each other. My fourth big rock is to have a child one day. And then the fifth I put was to be a homeowner. So these are just some examples. Yours may be very different. I'll give you a moment to write. So I would love to hear a few of these big rocks. I'd love if people just started sprinkling them in the chat box. Any of your big rocks that you feel called to share, you can just type them in over there. Hey, Tia, teach others about holistic health. Wonderful. It's an awesome big rock. Anyone else want to share a big rock in the chat box? Own land and space to be able to help others. It's so beautiful. Does anyone else relate to any of those? Feel free to type in the chat box. All right, and for those of you that are feeling ready for the next step, here are some more. Tia also shared heal others in a meaningful way, kind of like this webinar. Thank you, Tia. From Vicky, meet my soulmate, have financial freedom, help others share their voice, be surrounded and reconnected with family at a deeper level. So beautiful. From Stephanie, be a voice for animals and a model of kindness in the world. Rebecca, become a mindfulness consultant, find a life partner, create a loving home, have children, community. From Lauren, travel more. I'd love to go to Italy, be of service to my community, become a writer, start a business, have a family of my own. Ksenia, build a youth center for transformation, teach internationally, raise a son. So beautiful. I love how similar so many of our dreams are. They're, singing bowl. They're so, so beautiful. Okay. So the next step is to do as many as you can, but start to write out what may be holding you back from each of those. What may be holding you back? So I have another one to share here. Lisa, to be free from money worries and give freely. So beautiful and so important. Spend time with children all together and one-on-one. Yay. So just start to write out what might be holding you back from this, what fears might be in the way, what scares you about this, even what could be a reason that you don't want this thing. And I'll let you guys work on that because we're going to come back to that. So sometimes when we have these blocks, some of them are just about divine timing. Sometimes there's no emotional block at all. It's just about waiting for the divine timing, trusting in that. But I think in the meantime, it's always a beautiful thing to do is to just begin to prepare ourselves for what we wish to come. And I couldn't think of a better way than to be preparing yourself with these tools, the tapping and the matrix re-imprinting. So I'm going to set all of this aside for a moment. We're going to come back to it. And I'm going to share the second step. So the second step is about feeling your pain, letting go of past resentments, and forgiveness work. And this is really the guidance from Mary Magdalene. So Mary Magdalene is an ascended master. She is a being who did live on the earth plane thousands of years ago, about 2,000 years ago. She was the beloved, really, of Jesus Christ and a big supporter of him and his life mission, as well as a teacher herself who held the space for the feminine and for us to unite balance of our feminine and masculine. And her presence and energy is coming back at this time right now to many women. Sometimes women tell me, like, and this is what happened to me, just hearing her name, it ignites something really deep at our core. Like, yeah, I remember this, or something about this is really true. So I started researching her and reading some channeled books. One of the books, I just interviewed the author coming out on one of my future podcasts. It's called Mary Magdalene Beckons. And in this book, she talks a lot about feeling our pain. And she reminds us that our pain is a gift. It's a difficult medicine, but it's here to support us in our growth. So I used to think a lot of other people, especially people I, put on a pedestal or looked up to, I just thought maybe they don't experience pain the way I do. There must be something different about me if I'm experiencing so many emotions and difficulty. But the truth is we all experience pain, even the people that we look up to. And the ones you think may be perfect or move beyond it, eventually it does get easier to navigate our pain when we have the tools, but it is an inherent part of living in the third dimensional realm. So most of us have been cut off from our emotions from a young age. Many people were punished for having tantrums or were consoled, like, oh, don't cry. Because our emotions are inherently powerful. They're so powerful that they can make people around us uncomfortable. So we were often subconsciously conditioned to not express them. And part of our greatest work right now as a collective is reopening to our feelings, and in particular, our pain. Our feelings are a gift from the divine. They are a pathway for us to understand our own inner divine qualities. And they're really God beckoning us to reconnect with Source. They're also a warning signal to show us when an important value or need of ours is not being fulfilled. So feeling our pain will actually save us a lot of time in the long run, Emotions, as I said before, they're energy. When they're not felt, they don't just go away. They're repressed and they show up as depression, which is actually a numbness from feeling. Can show up as physical pain, as sickness or disease. They need to find a way to express themselves. So when we don't engage in the feeling, it can come out in other ways. So some of us may be afraid that if we really let ourselves feel our pain, it'll never go away, or that it'll be too much than we can handle. But actually the opposite is true. When we start to let ourselves really go into it, we start to open up and transform and release. So I want you to take a moment to ask yourself, and you can write this down, where may I be holding unresolved pain or unresolved memories? Where may I be holding unresolved pain or memories? And when we start to heal and feel any of those unrepressed emotions, we free up our energy to really start letting in more of that beauty and goodness and greatness in our lives. This next question is, where may I be holding any unresolved resentments? And also, is there anyone I haven't forgiven? And often when we can't forgive, it's a sign that we have pain that has not been fully felt. Because forgiveness is actually a process, it's a natural emanation from the heart. It's a natural process when we have fully felt our pain and resourced ourselves. It shouldn't feel like pulling teeth. It should feel like a natural emanation. And if we haven't yet come to that place, it's probably because there's more for us to feel. So Mary offers us a process to reconnect and feel in times of our difficulty. And this is just a short guided meditation. And I'm noticing we only have 10 minutes left. I can't believe it. I still have a bit more to share. So for those of you that are able to stay a little longer, till probably about 1:15, maybe even 1:20, I'm just going to give you that heads up. And if you have to go, that's okay. I'm going to be recording everything, so you can check in later. So let's take a moment to close our eyes and just open to our feelings. And let's just choose one of those things that came up. Maybe it's a memory or an unresolved pain from a relationship, a person. The first step is just to feel. Let go of any stories about what others did, who did what to create that pain. Your pain is your own. Come back to your feelings. Be with your heart. Give yourself as much time as you need. You can even ask the higher forces for support with this. Ask that you move through your pain with grace, so you be guided to what is needed for your highest good, with the highest good of all involved. Rest into the feeling, merge with it, allow it to expand. Feel it in your heart. And allow that pain to take you to source. And inquire with yourself, what divine qualities, what divine nature is this pointing me to? So let's say that you're feeling fear about something. When we open ourselves to the fear and allow it to be part of our being, we can then connect to what part of our God nature did we get disconnected from? And that's probably a sense of safety. And so just take a moment to feel whatever is the divine quality at the source of this pain or difficulty. In this case, a sense of safety. And when we reconnect to that divine nature within ourselves, we can reconnect with Source. And when we reconnect with that Source, we can allow our actions to be guided from a higher force. And it's actually in that place that we can have ideas come in for how we want to take action. But it's most important that we allow ourselves fully feel. Allow ourselves to open up to the feeling. You can take a deep breath. And open your eyes as you're ready. So opening back up to feeling is much of what I do in my private coaching work. And these tools that I've started to share about the EFT and the matrix begin to heal these memories and these core beliefs that have been holding us back or in this stuck place from really living in our full potential. Another insight I had is through the teachings of Mary and this author, Mercedes Kirkle, is that when it's not the outside world doing things to us that cause our difficult emotions, it's actually our disconnection from our divine nature, which causes the emotions. And the emotions are the exact pathway that will guide us back to our divine nature and our reconnection with that higher source. So that's a process that is really powerful for using this work. All right, so we're going to move to the third step. And the third step is literally just working with the tools and choosing. So what we're going to do is choose one of your big rocks. And we're going to do some tapping on the reasons that you wrote down of why maybe I can't have this, or why I might be afraid of this. So I'm going to do a one round just with a group, and you can fill in the blank. And then I'm going to invite if someone wants to share in the group. So let me just go back. All right. Great. So we'll start right here. Just tapping on the edge of the hand. And the way we start, everyone is muted right now. So go ahead and speak out loud and repeat after me. And if there's any point where I say something that's not true for you, change it so it is true for you. And we'll just do one round of this. Even though I really want, and fill in the blank of whatever it is you really want. And there's a reason I'm holding that I can't have it. And I'll say your reason. I still deeply love and completely accept myself. And then you can go to the top of the head. I really have this desire. It's so true in my body. I know in my heart that this is something I want for my life. And go to the eyebrow. But there's this thing holding me back. Maybe there are many things. And why I can't have it. And again, this is where we begin to just let out all the negativity, all the inner voices that might be going out in our subconscious. So I'll give you a moment to just say all the reasons I can't have it. Perhaps it's going to be too hard. Perhaps I don't have the money to do the thing that I want. Perhaps I don't feel worthy enough. Perhaps I feel like there's something wrong with me, whatever that is. And go to the cheekbone. Even though all of this, I still deeply love and completely accept myself. And in a session, usually we go pretty deep into each of those reasons of why and exploring and seeing what might be there. But for now, as a group, we're just going through the points. Take a deep breath. I love myself for doing this work. I'm bringing awareness now to the places that might be holding me back. There might be fears I need to face here. There might be beliefs I need to let go of. But I'm willing and I'm open and I'm ready to do this work. It actually makes me excited to think about doing this work. And go to the center of the heart. But it's just too scary. There's no way I could do this. And again, this is where we would just go into all the negative beliefs that might be here and really just getting them out. I'm going to give you a minute to share. It'll be too hard. Maybe I'll hurt someone. Whatever it is there, the belief holding you back. We'll go to the front of the rib cage. Even though all of this, I'm still completely worthy of love and respect. I love myself for doing this work. I love myself for taking these steps forward. I love myself for even imagining that this could be a possibility for me. I'm willing and ready to do this work now. We'll just pause there. And so often what we do when I'm in a private session, we check in the beginning of like from 0 to 10, how intense is this for you? How intense is this belief? How intense is this emotion? How intense is this memory? And then after we do the work, we check again, like, how is this gone? We can begin to measure along the way. So I've offered a lot of tools today. I'm going to start wrapping up. And I just want to share, so I've both tried doing this work on my own and also with an experienced practitioner. And it is so much more powerful when I'm actually receiving it from a practitioner and we're getting to dive into all of those aspects and all of those places. So I gave you a little bit of a foundation today of just exploring what is EFT, what is matrix re-imprinting, how does it work? There's only so much I can do in an hour. But if you are feeling called that I want to go into this work, I have some memories that I feel like are repressed. I have things that I want to uncover and unsurface and go deeper into so I can be more of my brilliant self. Then the invitation I have for you is to apply to the mentorship program that I have open right now. And this is called the Diamond Mentorship. And this is an experience for 3 months to really go into those places of the beliefs that were formed growing up, any traumas that you might be holding, any of those places that where you might be having a recurring habitual pattern, any of the big issues you see coming up again and again in your life or holding you back from taking a step forward. That's all what we're going to be diving into. And this is high-level work. It's work if you're really ready to go into those places and to heal them, to really fully step into that brilliance that you know is possible for yourself. So if you want to look at this on your own computer, the link is meredithrom.com. I created this because I think we need to keep growing, to be happy, to keep stepping into those greater places, to facing whatever it is that scares you head on, and then loving yourself through that process so there can be more ease and trust in the flow. So that is what I want to share with you today. So let's take a moment to center back in. I'll be sending out this recording so you can come back to any places that you want to come back to. I look forward to sharing more of this work, more and more of you. Just take a moment to feel into your breath. Feel into your heart what you know is true for yourself in this moment. Welcoming in a big breath of self-love. Letting it out. Another deep inhale. And out. Thanking yourself for taking this time out of your day. How wonderful it is to open up to greater healing and possibility for your life. Take a moment to call upon your big rocks, your dreams that you are holding in your heart. May you know that they are all possible for you. May you know that your desires are leading you on a beautiful path of ascension and growth. May you open to the greatest possibilities for your life. May you be willing to go into the places that may be hard or painful so that you can open to receive and give even more love. May you be held in divine love as you walk your path. May you be given all the resources that you need to take steps forward in your life. May you trust in your own inner knowing and guidance. May you be supported in every step of your journey. I'll bring my hands to my heart. Much gratitude, much love. Bow to each of you. Namaste. Thank you so much for taking this time today. I look forward to connecting soon. Bye.